Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
Hindsight, I didn't do my 30, 60, 90. I just kind of thought, whoosh, I can do this. I know how to do this.
Easy job. I can do it myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, how hard could this be?
Hey, everybody. It's Scott. It's Wednesday, and it's a Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Buzzy's smiling in the doorway, and that means we're going to have a great show. I've got Lisa Davidson from the OUTSOURCED Sales Manager here, and I got a great topic for you. The summer vacation slowness is over. People are starting to get into new roles now. We thought, why not talk to people about the right way and best practices and the easy on-ramps for new roles, particularly new sales roles, although some of you marketing folks are definitely going to benefit from this conversation. We are going to jump into the program, but I'm going to ask you, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. We come at you every Wednesday. If you do that, you get it earlier than everybody else because we're petty and we set it up that way. So you have to wait longer if you're not a subscriber. It's not a long time, but it's enough to irritate you. Let's talk to Lisa Davidson, the OUTSOURCED Sales Manager, our good friend. All right, Lisa D, my routine is all out of whack because we're recording on a Friday night. Everything's weird. How are you?
I'm good tonight.
I'm glad you're good tonight.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's odd for me. You get kind of tied into your routines.
Yes.
And I think that's a great jumping off point for what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're talking about people starting off representing a new product that they didn't have any experience. Like, you've just been brought onto a new team. How do you have success getting started? So Lisa and I are going to try to break it down, but as always, it's not going to be like us just reading a script. So, we're going to bump into some things and make trips along the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's set the table. We're not talking about anybody in particular, right? This is not necessarily just for newbies. It's not necessarily just for veterans. It's not necessarily for somebody's first sales job. We're going to talk about the things that people are using as mental models and as planning tools and whatnot, because the one thing that all those people have in common is you don't want to fail when you first come onto a new team.
Right.
So let's start with story time.
Go ahead.
Tell me about a time when you joined a new company or a new team. And it's kind of cheating with you, considering the fact that, you could just totally fake one of your clients over there at the OUTSOURCED Sales Manager. Right? You'd be like, no, there was this time my name was Leonard. But tell me, sort of like what thoughts you had, one of the times when you were transitioning to a new team and you don't want to let the boss down. You don't want to let your colleagues down. You're kind of mindful of what your place is in the social order of things.
Actually, I can tell you the story of the transition from my corporate sales job to my first small business sales job.
Yeah.
Now, you and I have a tech background.
Yeah.
And I went from a big telecom company, corporate sales,
right,
got reorged out and got this great opportunity with a small IT support company.
Oh, yeah.
Still in the tech realm.
How many people?
At the time, I think it was like 6 or 7.
Wow.
Big shift. And the shift in my process and the amount of information that A, I felt I needed, but B, how much did I really need?
Yeah, well, in big corporate, there's a never-ending supply of glossy 8.5 by 11 docs to like slide into your binder and those kinds of things. And a 7-person company probably has not had those things made up.
No. And to be honest, because I didn't really understand the target market, which I want us to talk about, I didn't need to know the bits and bytes. I didn't need to understand how the server worked. I didn't need to know those things. What I really needed to know, and what I should have been doing and didn't, was I should have known the big questions to ask that could lead the product team or the owner of the company to swoop in and go, here's our solution. So for me, I didn't understand my position as being that door opener, as being the one to gather all of that intricate information to allow them to make a good solution. I was used to doing the whole schmear on myself and bringing in the parade of people. So this was a different kind of sale.
Yeah.
And it was a different position to be in.
Was it at all maybe like an anxiety? Like your anxiety made you think you needed to be something, or was it just routine?
I can tell you it was arrogance.
Okay.
Because I came from a big corporate where I had all the awards. I was,
So I have this little like it's not written down, but I have a sense of what we're probably going to talk about. And this is definitely on my list. It's assimilate into the culture.
Yes, huge.
So assimilating into the culture means a lot of different things. Sometimes it means understand that sales doesn't mean the same thing in this company, and marketing doesn't mean the same thing in this company as you're used to. Sometimes it means salespeople really are frowned upon getting involved in the tech end. Like, don't make promises for us, just start the conversation, and you may be used to something else.
Right.
In terms of assimilating into a new culture, personally for me, I think manager meetings are key.
Yes.
I think you got to talk to your manager about like, what does your most successful person do? Or what does the person before me do? And how would you change that?
Or just basic questions of, what's expected of me?
Yeah.
Well, what's expected of me? What is our process? What's, me, I love process, and asking those kinds of questions, because now you can see the landscape and where you slot into that whole chain. Now,
interesting question pertaining to culture is, so you're the outsourced sales manager, and a lot of times you're coming in fresh to bring fresh culture with you, right? So when you walk into one of these places, and I'm not saying they all have a toxic culture, they just a lot of times don't always have the most productive possible culture in place. What do you look to build? What do you think should be universal for these cultural questions? Like, is it something where it's like we all need to be here at the same time, once a week, or, is it more about like we all agree on a mission statement? How do you set up culture in a place that maybe struggles with it?
Well, the first thing you need to do is understand, from an outsourced sales manager perspective, you need to understand the cast of characters. Okay. So, because sometimes the best managers are the ones that not necessarily know how to direct and give orders, but they understand their people, they understand the strengths, and you build the culture around it. We try to make this an exact science, and you and I both know when there's humans involved, there's no such thing.
Well, I'll tell you something that I do on the assimilating into the culture thing. I'm glad you went into detail about sort of the different types of managers and the different types of ways that people look at it. I'm going to give you something about it, and it's look at how the company spends money. And it's super small, but I'll give you a simple example. Is the office supply cabinet locked? Okay? Because now you're making determinations between like, is there a small enough team that trust is still in place? Or is there a thief amongst us? It doesn't necessarily just mean one thing. But understanding how money is spent. Right? Do people talk about budgets, or do they talk about just, quote, what you can convince someone of? Tells you about culture. Do people offer alternative solutions when they have an issue? Do those alternative solutions actually get an airing? Do they get audience, right? And I think assimilating into the culture first means understanding the culture, right? And understanding sort of like the moving parts. I also think in addition to just meeting with the manager, probably meeting with your colleagues, buy a couple lunches.
Absolutely.
I'm the new kid. Tell me what's going on at this school.
Yeah. Or, what's making you guys successful?
Yeah.
Help me ramp up what things didn't work for you.
How about, okay, so I told you I've got like this unofficial sort of list of like things that are interesting to me.
Okay.
What about learning new product? Right? I think everybody starts off, whether you come in with confidence or not, that, well, I've got to learn a new product. Like it's the first thing people say. I'm gonna throw a theory at you and just see if you agree. I think there's a period where you are useful, but not great.
Yes.
So you focus on this person is probably first 90, right? First 90 days. And the useful but not great person says things like, I'm so glad to meet you. I'm going to be your new account manager. Or hopefully we can learn together, right? These are people who polish their manners and polish their interpersonal skills as a way to sort of make up for a lack of product knowledge.
Yes.
And if they're sharp about it, they're also honest about the fact that they haven't seen every possible fish out there, right? Some things are going to come up and I'm not going to know what it is, right? And then you start to become sharp on product over, and again, I want to say it's like 90 days, 6 months, somewhere in there, you start to become useful on the product side. But in the beginning, I think it's a balancing act where as you're loading up on product knowledge, you really have to be focusing on, how do I do a good introduction? How do I make a good first impression? How do I show them that I can at least get the information and I can get back to them quickly and that I answer my phone? All those soft skills.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you, I think one of the best, and I learned this late in my career, one of the best ways to learn about the product isn't to read all the pamphlets and stuff.
Right.
It's to go to your company's case study page.
Yep.
Read the case studies,
YouTube.
Understand all of that stuff. There's so many resources. But once you understand how people have benefited from your product or service, or you can identify certain starting points or a problem that they had or a situation that needed to be repaired.
Yeah.
If you can tell a story, or if as you're prospecting, you come across a prospect and you can kind of categorize them in one of those case studies, that kind of takes away the grief or the pressure of having to know every little bit and bite, but being able to tell a story and a success story.
Right.
Oh, we had a client just like that, and this is how our product helped them. And
I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, but I know we did a great job for XYZ college.
That's
and
right.
You are also a college. So I have to believe there's common ground here somewhere.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And at least you're able to talk about a success story, so you're coming with some sort of credibility.
True or false, though? It's more pressure from yourself on the product knowledge side.
Oh,
Have you
so
ever seen a
true.
situation where they were like, man, this person's just not putting enough effort into the product knowledge?
Yeah, no.
It's always internal.
It's always internal. But again, that's the sign. I feel that's the sign of a good salesperson.
Conscientious person. maybe.
Yes.
I don't know about good salesperson.
Well, they're just trying.
Because I think that could be the thing that kills your confidence more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It is, the old saying, like, if whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. If you think that you're not learning fast enough, you put this enormous distraction into your headspace. You can't look around it. Every call you have to look around the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, if I could throw out another tidbit, is this is something that I learned when we were, in big telecom companies.
Yeah.
Is use your resources, because the more that you hear those people talk to your prospects and customers,
Yep.
you're going to start to
And
assimilate
we had
that
multiple
language.
levels in that universe.
Oh my gosh, we had
So there
such
were-
great resources.
There were technical consultants. You're just afraid they're listening.
I'm still friends with some of those people, so I got to be nice.
I was totally friendly with them. But let's be honest, right? Like, most companies don't have that much support.
No, they don't.
And that's kind of my point, right? Is great people, bad people, smart people, dumb people, doesn't matter as much as the company was burning a ton on, well, here's a specialized person for this product set. Here's a specialized person just to keep you from having to do too much product knowledge. Here's a specialized person that's an overlay rep that also gets paid when you get paid when you sell this third line item in the catalog, right? There's so much support that it also, I think we're back to culture. Like, is this, and that's what I'm talking about the spending the money, right? Like, if you see them spending a lot of money on those resources and you don't use them, that's on you now.
Right.
But I think the strain that people put on themselves, the pressure they put on themselves to learn product is a lot like the first time you find out you're going to become a parent, right? It's this nebulous thing that sits because the baby's not here yet, right? You know, the job's not here yet. Like, am I doing this right? I'm probably going to screw it up. Man, I hope nobody can tell that I'm under pressure. I got to walk in there and act like I already know everything, but then be gracious about asking for help. It's these unrealistic expectations that are all in opposition to each other.
Agreed. I just think it's that, for lack of a better thing, just finding your groove, you know, with the balance of the kinds of knowledge you already have. You got hired for the job because you were obviously a good fit, or they thought you were.
Yeah, they thought you were.
So you have something attractive to them, and you have some knowledge base that they think can be applicable, because they're not going to hire somebody that they have to mold from a lump of clay.
They're going to make the best possible investment they can make.
That's right. So be confident in that and build on that.
I would say all of this then leads into, you and I probably generically refer to it as 30, 60, 90, right? Which is, I don't know if everybody does it, so I want to make sure we explain it, because it may just be nerds like us in the sales universe that use this to kind of think. Whenever you start a new, and it's not even just sales.
No,
I think
anything.
marketing has this too. I don't know about everything. I don't want to go outside of what I know, right? But I know the accountability for sales and marketing is about how many people did you reach and how can you prove it? Now, in sales, you're talking about how many conversions, but marketing uses that word too, but for a different reason.
That's right. It means something different.
Yeah. How many people did you convert to actually consider a purchase, right? So a 30, 60, 90, a lot of times, and I get this call a bunch. I've been asked to do a 30, 60, 90 as part of my job interview.
Yes.
And they ask me, they're like, what should I do for a 30, 60, 90? I don't know every business. I've tended to work in B2B. I've tended to work in tech. The first question I want to ask is, when you're outside sales managing, do you tell people to do this?
I tell all of my clients when they're getting ready to hire a salesperson, that is part of the job interview.
Yeah.
Because if the person struggles with, or you get the deer in the headlights look when you say, okay, next step is I need you to deliver a sales plan.
Right.
And it's up to me. 30, 60, 90 is how you and I talk.
Right.
But if that person can come up with, okay, when I start, here's where I'm, day one, these are the things I'm going to be looking at. The following month, I'm going to be focusing on this, so that they can give you a cohesive look into how they're going to proceed in your company.
Well, it also shows their creativity, doesn't it?
Oh, creativity and vision. Self-awareness. They know their skill set, right? They're also going to know their network. They're going to know the customers that hopefully they can bring to your table.
You find out what they're going to ask you to spend money on.
Yes.
Okay.
See, you always go back to money.
No, well, I do.
But you're right.
You're not wrong, but I do think that it's one of the naked ways. Like, there's no way to obfuscate, right? Like, money doesn't lie. You can tell me that this company lavishes resources on its sales reps, but if you don't actually give them CRM, give them training, give them those steps up, then you might be right, but it becomes a lot less likely that you're telling the full truth, right? When we were in telecom and we saw all those people around us that were there to support us, no one said, oh, this company skimps on everything.
Right.
No one ever said that. If anything, when we sat in sales meetings, it was, we gave you all the resources you could ask for, and if you don't deliver, you're out of excuses.
That's right.
And that's why I go back to the money, right? But yeah, sometimes they come back to you and they're like, well, I need $2,500 to join this, trade organization.
That's right.
And at least now it's on the 30, 60, 90.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it gives you not just the kind of money that they're going to ask you to spend, but it also gives you a look into what is their stream of thought.
Yeah.
Where are they thinking that they're going to go look and find new customers for your product?
What do they think it is that makes them successful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the 30, 60, 90 for yourself, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
Ideally, they both match, right?
I think so, sure.
But I think there's an argument to be made that says, like, there's one that you show them in the early part of your career, right? When you're not quite sure if you can synthesize your external and your internal personality. Having a 30, 60, 90 that's just yours sounds like something that you should at least consider. And if you choose not to do it, at least you have a reason and you put thought into it.
Yeah. And as you're looking, even if you're looking for a sales position, to me, that's one of the key conversation questions to be asking in the interview process is, what is the onboarding look like? What does the training look like? So you're going to know as you're starting to put your plan together in your head,
right,
because you're planning for your own success.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. You want to make a good showing.
I screw the person across the table.
Yeah. No, it's all about you.
At this point, you also have to be shopping to feed your family. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So you need to be coming with some ideas. And if there's a training, find out what some of the components of that training are, so that as you're putting your 30, 60, 90 together, you're going to see how they mesh and where you can maybe advance and excel because of how that's already structured.
Yeah. And when you're doing your 30, 60, 90, people a lot of times, just by going through the exercise, are better off.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you don't actually follow it,
That's
which
right.
I don't recommend, right? But if you just sat down and actually composed one, you are by definition in a better place at the end because at least your thoughts have been organized at least one time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. What's the old phrase? Plan your work and work the plan, or something like that.
Yeah.
So even if it has to be adjusted, the fact that you've gone through it kind of step by step and got your process in place, and again, you're going to know the resources that you're going to need as you go along, is going to set you up to excel and achieve more quickly.
There's a guy I know, and he's been at this a long time, right? And he's pretty good at it. And one of the funniest things, I read his 30, 60, 90. He was putting it together. And he's 60 years old, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing new under the sun as far as he's concerned. He knows himself. He knows, like, where he's had success, where he's had failures. He has no ego in it. My favorite part was he says, start the mailing list at 1. It was literally one of the bullet points.
There you go.
And I'm like, you absolute, like, that was perfect.
Yep.
Was start the mailing list at 1 was on his 30-day. And what he meant was, as long as I'm going to be going around telling everybody that I'm their conduit into this company that, represents all these different things that you might want, I'm not just going to keep heckling you. The best time to start a newsletter is when you're the new person.
Yes.
Hey, I'm, Joe Bag of Donuts, and I just started. I'm going to be your person for this territory, for this product, for this whatever your assignment is. And I know you probably don't want me to call all the time. So what I like to do when I do a job like this is I put together a newsletter that says, here's what's new in technology that I represent this month. Because we all know it changes. And he's been insanely, 7-figure sales on a regular basis, insanely successful throughout his career. But it starts with, start the mailing list at number 1.
Yes.
And I really like that.
Yeah.
It's planning.
It's planning.
It's right up your alley.
Yes.
It couldn't be any more, Lisa.
I love to plan. I love it.
Now, speaking of planning, big bullet point, right? Some people like to try to burn themselves out in those first 90.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, I call it setting your pace, right? Have you seen this where people just kind of like, well, I just won't sleep for the first 3 months, and then I'll have a head start. I'll be further ahead than they think.
Yeah, and I think that also goes back to your to the original starting point for our conversation today, and that was culture. If you're in a culture where people are stepping over each other, I can see where that would be your attitude.
But that first 30 to 90 is when you assimilate into the pace too.
Yes.
And I've watched too many people fall into that trough, into that, like they crash again. It's just like you can't keep it up. And then the next thing you know, you're just wrecked.
Yes.
Your numbers start to falter. You're not the same sunny, cheery person they thought they hired.
Right. And you start to lose your focus, right? Because now you're trying to, it's more about, trying to keep up rather than doing your job well, and being successful at the job and serving your customers and all of that intention stuff.
Now, what's interesting? You were talking about when you went to work for the small IT versus the large telecom. I'm going out on a limb here. We didn't talk about this in advance, so I might be wrong, but I have to believe they wanted you to tell them how big companies did certain things. Is that right?
Well, and that's where my arrogance came in that, of course, they hired me. I'm Lisa Davidson.
You are the Lisa Davidson.
I am the Lisa Davidson.
Take the credit. You are.
Yes, I am. And I have an incredible pedigree, and I look great on paper.
Betty Badass.
Yes, thank you. That'll be my new tagline. But when I didn't understand the culture in that they already had their own target market. They already had a voice with their customers and prospects.
They weren't successful by accident.
That's right. And I was their first ever salesperson.
Right.
There wasn't a me. It was the two owners of the company selling and running the company. So this was a huge.
I am not jealous of this
culture shock.
I've seen this too. This movie's a tough one.
Yeah. So again, there was that. For me, there was that push-pull, and I knew how I was successful.
Right.
But then the partners of the company knew what made them successful.
But that's cheating. I'm sorry. The CEO has the easiest sales gig in the office, because how many times have you heard in movies, TV, whatever, it's like, I only work with the person at the top. The reason is because it gives the customer a certain feeling that they're important when the CEO talks to them. And that converts at a higher rate. I'm sorry. I know that that's not what they want to hear when, they hire their first salesperson ever, and that person doesn't do as well as the CEO, because it sounds like an excuse, but that's true.
It is true. But on the other hand, too, hindsight, I didn't do my 30, 60, 90. I just kind of thought, whoosh, I can do this. I know how to do this.
Easy job. I can do it myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, how hard could this be? And I already knew these guys. They were referral partners of mine. I was referring them business.
So you already felt you knew the spiel too.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I think that's an easy trap to fall into, because big company wasn't made big by one person, but it sure strokes the old ego.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, I'm here to bring, Christianity to the savages. I'm going to make it all right for all you guys. I'm going to tell you how, Homo sapiens does it.
That's exactly right.
Now, the reason I ask is because I think a lot of times, and this kind of gets to, the next thing I want to talk about, which is expectation, right? This is different than culture. This is different than 30, 60, 90.
Yes.
This is about, do they think they hired some sort of King Midas type that just touches things and they turn to gold? And do you think that it's a 2-week sales cycle with, accelerators and bonuses, when it's a 2-year sales cycle with none of that, right? Expectations are key. And yes, we are coming back to money, and it's just going to have to be okay. Personally, as an employer, I like to set expectations, frankly, up front before we ever have an employment agreement.
Yes.
But there's this weird sort of like tea ceremony aspect to it where it's like they're lying to me a little bit and putting their best foot forward. And I'm maybe trying to put the moves on them a little bit about this is a great place to work, because if they turn out to be the rock star I think they are, I want to make sure that they feel like, so basically I'm selling. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We're both selling, right? So now you're in it. And now we have to, even though we're already committed, still flesh out the rest of the expectations.
Well, I think I for me, it goes back to that 30, 60, 90, because when I'm doing that, even for myself, not the one I'm showing the employer, but when I'm doing that for myself, I am thinking about that. I'm thinking, okay, here's my quota. Here's how much I'm responsible for. Let's say they give you an annual quota.
Right.
So now I know, okay, my product is $100 a sale, and you start to do the math and you back into it, and this is how, here's my goal, break it down into little bite-sized pieces. Here's how I think I'm going to get there. And what do I need to do to get there?
Well, I think sometimes people just throw a number at you and then wait for you to hit it. So you have to worry about you.
Yep.
And marketing folks, this goes for you too, right? All of a sudden, one day, months down the road, they're going to ask for accountability. Why haven't social engagements gone up, right? And if you haven't thought about it in terms of that simple arithmetic, you're not going to be able to fudge it at the 11th hour. It's got to be a pace.
Yeah. And I think I just keep going back to, yourself, your strengths.
Right.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say most employers, if you show signs of being successful, even if it's a little outside the box, they're gonna let you go.
Promising failure is a thing, right? You bring us a bunch of leads, but it's maybe for a product that we don't feel strong at,
right?
Or it's not really ready for prime time, but we can't bring ourselves to send that out on a memo.
Or you didn't qualify them well enough because you don't understand,
right?
But you've brought in 10 new prospects that week. Woohoo!
You took your manager on
That's
more
right.
meetings than anybody else in the office.
That's right.
And all of them were stinkers. But promising failure is you showed that you are willing to work with your manager. Like you are hand in glove with this person. You're just still trying to figure it out, right? And promising failure is a thing in the early going.
Yes.
5 years in, you can see it when new products come out. But in the early going, people are really worried about showing any amount of failure. 5 years from now, you're still in the same job. They come out with a new product. You screw up. You don't give it a second thought.
Right.
But on your 12th day, promising failure is still failure to you. And again, we're back to that internal pressure, that internal stress. I don't know. Expectations can be tough. It's nice when you can find a manager that you can talk to. Anything else?
I think the only thing that I want to encourage folks going to a new position or a new industry is something I have my clients do, especially my clients that might be business owners and having to sell.
Yeah.
Is to kind of create for yourself a cheat sheet that doubles as a client intake form. So
go on.
Yes, I love this technique. So what you do is instead of trying to remember in your head, oh, I read that press release. Oh, what did it say? Or what were the stats?
Nice.
So what we do is we put together.
I'm not sure I'm going to let you put your secret sauce out in the world like that.
Well,
I might edit you out of that.
No, there's
that's really valuable.
It's very valuable. Very
Why
valuable.
did I never think of this before?
And I can tell you, I had a client who was having a hard time finding a vice president of sales.
Yeah.
And they took...
That's the hardest job there is to hire for.
Exactly. Well, the guy that was best suited because he knew the process, because it was a manufacturing company, was the director of operations. Guy never sold before in his life, but he knew the customer base. The customers knew him. He knew capacity, right? So they hired me to teach him how to sell. Well, the guy didn't need help selling. He needed a process. So that's what we did. So every time he would go see a customer, he had his little customer intake form, what they sold what they bought from him last year, what they were projected this year, with some key questions. So, what's happening in your business this year?
Right.
So that he didn't have to remember.
Lisa Davidson, the outsourced sales manager. Throw a .com at the end if you want to find her on the internet. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you. Oh, it's so fun to be here again. Thanks.
Always nice to have you. All right, that's the end of the ride. Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate Lisa and all the time that she spends with us, talking out these things, nerding out with me on sales stuff. You can find her again at the OUTSOURCEDSalesManager.com. We always look forward to having Lisa back into the studio, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon. If you're not already following us on social media, make sure you do it. We would love to have you in the conversation there. Otherwise, just reach out to us. Let us know what we can do for you, who we can invite on. We'll catch you next Wednesday.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.